Hello and welcome to the Danganronpa 3 reaction series for the anime of Despair, Future, and now Hope Side. This is podcasty, stylish, sort of thingish thing where I write down notes and I use those as a basic outline for me basically talking about it, and then I edit it down a little bit to make it a little less rambly, and after that I post it as is. After this I am planning to do a review of the series, probably a bit shorter than my typical game reviews, probably a bit different structurally too. But I'm probably going to try to script out my thoughts a bit more eloquently than me just rambling on about each episode. With that in mind, let's look forward, let's get to it, and let's look towards hope and despair and what that truly, truly means. Hello, Future Side, episode 10. This is the episode, the final confrontation. Well, not final, I actually don't know if it's final, but the confrontation between Munakata, the president, and Makoto. Now, I'm actually sort of starting to remember some people's names. Yukizomi for Sensei, and Munakata for the president, and Tengen for the old man. And I might just be remembering people's names because basically everyone's dead. That might be part of it. And Midarai for the animator. Pretty sure those are the names. I'm pretty sure I'm remembering them now. And we'll totally see if that holds up. Last time, Kyoko died, and we start off on the reminiscing and the sadness and all the feelings. I wrote down that I can't help but think that if Hina or Hiro died, that they wouldn't dwell nearly as much, especially Hiro, and maybe Byakuya, though he tends to be part of the more major ones of the survivors. Oh, and you know what? When I wrote this down, I completely forgot Toko even existed. Yeah, that says a bit about how much I think people would dwell on Toko. The beginning section really made it feel like they were trying to set up Munakata, president guy, as the mastermind, at least in Makoto's mind. Just how he was like being set up almost felt like they were trying to, like with Kyoko's theories and everything else involving it. Though at the end when Hina showed up with the notebook, means Kyoko probably didn't believe that either, so it's definitely a red herring. And then another note I put down here. God damn, I'm 7 minutes in and Makoto was just leaving. It's not badly paced, mind you. It actually was quite enthralling and gripping, and realistically, that was a good chunk of the episode, surprisingly. Much of the rest of the episode was the action between them, Makoto fighting with luck and Munakata fighting with competency. Let's call it competency. And I think I was quickish to notice that the blood was red, and it continued to be red throughout the entire damn episode. When did this change happen in like an earlier episode? Like I know I pointed it out before, and I honestly wasn't paying that much attention to other people dying, I suppose. So maybe I'm just noticing it now, but the blood's all red in this. It just feels wrong. It just feels wrong. As for the big actual implications of this episode, where they're talking about who the actual attackers were, Tengen said that they were all attackers. How does that actually mean? It sort of feels like he's speaking in metaphors, though. Like he's saying stuff without actually saying it. Like he's using implications to implant an idea in Munakata's mind rather than actually saying it. It's not technically a lie since implications are not his answer, only perceived truth made up by Munakata in his mind. And as Munakata's just like trying to like beat senseless out of Makoto, it feels like the entire premise that he's basing this on is a misconception. Tengen spoke so ridiculously vaguely that I don't even care if this supports my theory of Yukizomi being alive and actually killing people and being despair and whatnot. It goes with what's happening in the Despair arc too. So, I mean, there's something sort of to that, but it feels so incredibly off. I mean, yeah, Danganronpa has had some pretty vague answers before, like super, super vague, but I don't think that was ever really the case when it actually came down to the mysteries, the murders, the deaths. I don't think that was ever actually the case. And the blood's still red, so everything just feels wrong at the moment. Something feels off. And then you have the ending where Hina shows up with Kyoko's, I think it was a notebook. I didn't get a good look at it. I don't know why she just wouldn't tell people she figured it out, but still. So, big cliffhanger. Very interesting, very interesting. I'm happy I still have episode 11 I can watch today. 12 hasn't come out quite yet at the point I'm recording this. Oh, in the post-credit scene? Oh god, that's infuriating. I just want to know what's happening there. It was literally just a ship moving. That was the entirety of that scene. Such a fucking tease I want to see. Okay, see you next time. Drive safely. Despair Side. Episode 10. This episode was despair. Oh god, so much despair. Oh my goodness, that was a little overwhelming. Yeah. I should probably pick myself up a little bit and actually talk at a proper posture for actually recording this. At the beginning, Kizomi, she was suspicious, just as they implied. I don't feel like I really called that as much as I pointed out the obvious at the end of the last episode. He gets into the actual opening. I'm just thinking, I wrote this down. I just like, I'm feeling like I actually don't really want to watch this. I'm not sure I want to watch this. I mean, I did want to watch it. I did. And I don't regret watching it or anything, but it's just like, you know what's coming. After that, it shows that the whole thing with Junko and the boxer guy, I don't know his name yet. No, I'm not going to worry about it. I don't think I really care about his name at this point. And I'm surprised she won. It sort of feels like anyone with anything even resembling an athletic ability makes them like a super amazing fighter in this somehow. And Junko somehow is better than the best boxer in the world. Or something like one of the best boxers in the world, whatever. Still. I was also surprised that the boxer guy was gay. I mean, I have no problem with it. I'm perfectly fine with that. I just never thought of it. And it makes my assumptions from before seem a lot different, and some of my previous speculating just seems so far off now. You have that whole scene, and then you get into the real chunk of what was happening in this episode. And here are some of my thoughts that I wrote down. Oh god, the elevator. Oh god, I remember those swirly eyes from the beginning of, the end of the first game with Junko going to complete despair, so you know what they mean. And then you see the trap sprung, and the trap is sprung, and that little clip with like the execution animation with her being dragged off, her in that art style, and then it just cuts to what I assume in Japan is commercials. I assume it just cuts to commercials at that point. And what I wrote down was this: no, I don't want to see it again. No, I don't want to see it again. All caps for that last. Oh, I don't want to see it again too. I'm actually tearing up a little bit now. Just a little. I remember feeling this way, the feeling that a lot of this episode really embodied. I remember it from the beginning of the first game when Leon's execution happened. And that was like the point in the whole series, because I don't really remember why I initially got interested in the game. I just knew it was like a new Vita release at the time. By the time you got to the Leon execution, and there's just like this pit in my stomach where you're reminded that you never really truly know that feeling of despair all that well. I've had a few things in my life, I'm not going to elaborate on them. It's way too personal, that I have felt that feeling before, but it's just the reminder of that feeling, and this show just messes with emotions so well, and this episode did very well at it too. It sort of petered out. They pushed it along a bit longer, and it petered out a little bit by the end, but when the credits hit again, it all came rushing back. It all came just rushing back. Before I move on, I should probably talk about the brainwash concept. I don't like it. I don't. I get why it's there. I just don't really like it. It feels like just a quick way of getting the story to where it needs to be, rather than just like a good plot. And yes, they tied in some very emotional parts to it, but it feels not lazy as much as an unfortunate compromise to make the story what it is, to make it more serviceable for what we ended up getting. And it's unfortunate. I talked about a bit more in my the last Despair side episode's reaction, precisely why I don't like it, but I don't think this really made me feel any better about it. I mean, combine that with the feelings from the overall episode, and happy times all around. And then you also have Azuru, who, with his crying and showing that he still has some Hajime in him, he continues to intrigue me, and I'm just gonna wonder where he's going, because that's the last bit of hope I have left here. They got to the point. It's episode 10. It's episode 10, damn it. What are they gonna do for 2 more episodes? Oh boy, okay. See you all next time. Oh, drive safely, everyone. Future side, episode 11. You know what? Death, destruction, despair, sort of, suicides, all that stuff. Yeah, I feel better now. I feel better after the last Despair side episode. Yeah, this is exactly what I need to get me back up on my feet. This is the episode of the attacker reveal to be suicide. Interesting. So at the beginning, they show the scene after the end of the first game where the door opened up and they showed some of the Future Foundation guys figuring out it was them and showing that Yukizomi's brainwashing from the Despair Side episodes really did hold up. It actually does sort of make me wonder precisely how scattered this would seem if you were only watching one of these series. Because I'm sure there are some people out there who are only watching Future Side and just like, yep, this is Danganronpa 3, and they don't even know Despair Side exists. Because at least looking at Mal, I think this Future Side has a significant number more people saying that they are watching it. So, interesting. The process of them trying to figure out precisely how the suicide worked and how the monitors affected it. I wrote down some stuff. I said that Makoto has the right idea, mind you, in terms of like tying himself and figuring it out. It's basic isolation testing, simple stuff for like experimenting. Set up tests to see if it makes a difference, to try to see if a specific variable makes a difference. Mind you, it'd also be a good idea to have control of people being tied up well away from the monitor too. Mind you, I think they might have enough controls by then, but at the same time, I guess if you look at the brainwash aspect of the despair arc, it might also be able to force them into that, and that ended up being right. I thought of that as they were setting it all up, and I wrote that down. At least that was the only way I could think of that a monitor would do it, and I ended up being right. I also noted a thought saying, maybe the mastermind is already dead, and this is a no-win game. The win scenario for this, for Makoto and basically everyone, is to remove the attacker or disable the mastermind's ability to make them attack each other. The mastermind is already dead, possibly being part of the game and being one of the first people to attack themselves through suicide, and everything is automated and the attackers themselves via suicide, then there is no way out of the game. Well, assuming whoever set it up is smart enough to not leave the whole power system unlocked. Yeah, they might be pretty stupid. Though if that line of logic is true, it does make me wonder, what's the point? For the first game, the goal was ultimately to make them fall to despair, make this televised broadcast cause everyone else to fall to despair that hadn't already, eliminate any little bit of hope left. It failed, but that was the goal. The second game's death game was a matter of manipulating the system to actually cause a situation where Junko could upload her AI into the bodies so that she could have a resurgence of herself. But all of them had goals. Here, I just don't see it at all. And like Tengen, if he's really behind it with that text at the end, something just feels really off about that answer. Other than the fact that he seems like he should be dead. He should be dead. I thought the boxer was dead, but who knows? There's all those still alive numbers. I didn't check what it was on this episode, but those might be hinting at stuff still. And it just feels off. Whenever the show just goes like, it can only be this guy. This is the only one that could have done it. The explanation always feels really lacking. As for Yukizomi, I did not really think that they thought that she'd be in despair. Yeah, a lot of my speculation feels completely like wasted time now. Yay! Mind you, that does remind me that I can really appreciate how much they built up the relationship between Munakata, Yukizomi, and the boxer. Still don't remember his name, probably never going to. And I really can appreciate, they did a great job between the despair side and the future side of setting that up and just making it all really impactful, especially at the end there. But despite all the conclusive elements to this, like them getting the bracelets off, all the power being turned off, them knowing basically how everything works, I'm just left with so many questions. I get answers, but there's so many more questions on the table now. It makes me wonder where they're going with this. I don't know where they're going with this. That's part of it. I don't know. And that makes me excited for the next episode, which, when I'm recording this specifically, should be airing tomorrow? I think it's tomorrow. So, okay, on to Despair side. Oh god, do I have to? I have to. I don't want to. Oh god. Okay, let's do this, guys. Let's do this. Despair side, episode 11. The end of Despair. The truly despairful ending of all. It felt pretty fairy tale, actually, in this really twisted way, in how they had the narration, they had everything go on at the end there. I wonder if there really was anything to the movie theater scene from the beginning of the I was about to say beginning of the game, but beginning of this side with Yukizomi, because that does seem a little out of place. Was it just a framing aspect? I wonder if they'll go into that in the next future arc or the Hope side. I feel as though the revelations about future side sort of clear up a lot of the questions about this, which sort of seems fitting since this one feels like it's tunneling into a final end. Also, just random thing, despair memes. It should be a thing. It's weird, but it should be a thing. Yeah, the episode basically transitioned into the end of Hope's Peak Academy. Well, before the original end of it, the mass suicide and all that stuff. And it's just so off-putting to see them all acting normal for so long, given what just happened in the last episode, what's happening outside. Transitions into the despair aspect quite well. I will note it is unfortunate, and probably the part about this that I like the least, sort of relates to the brainwashing part, is that you never got a look at what they thought, how they thought, what, like the mentality, the psychology behind their despair, each and every one of them. Instead, it's just they go out and do their thing. It's unfortunate. I think we're getting a bit of a look at Azuro as a character. Azuro seems like I'm really liking him as a character. He, like, from Danganronpa 2, he felt like such a straightforward, like this completely different entity, the perfect being that got easily bored and all that stuff. But now, how they're fleshing him out in this, I really, really like him as a character. He's gone up on my list. You also have the mass suicide I mentioned. I gotta be honest, I sort of imagined something different just when they brought it up in the game or whenever else. I didn't imagine them all jumping from the windows. I sort of imagined them like in this gymnasium, Junko just standing above them all with her like little crown like she does, and just like, kill yourselves, and they all put a gun to their head, pull the fucking trigger. That's what I sort of figured would happen, but this is fine too, just a bit different. Overall, it's just a lot of playing out exactly how you'd expect it to. Them boarding it up. It's nice to see everyone from the first game again and alive, not for long. And the scene with Sayaka and Makoto basically being friends when like Junko and Mukuro were watching them, that was a nice touch. Ultimately, the focus shifting onto Azuro's like curiosity over hope and despair being unpredictable is something that I didn't really see coming, but I really, really like. And it makes me really hopeful for Side Hope, which is basically episode 12. The feelings that this series has been able to invoke and how much I like Azuro's arc in this so far, and how much I want to see what happened to the Danganronpa 2 cast, like, in the end. And then I'm sure it also ties into the future arc stuff. It just feels as though, since this is supposed to be the end of this story, that I'm expecting something extremely satisfying. And if it's not extremely satisfying, I probably won't be like, oh, up in arms about it or anything, but it's just what I'm expecting. And I'm really, really looking forward to it, and sort of sad that I didn't wait for all the episodes to come out by the time I recorded these 10 and 11 for each of these. So, yeah, I'll see you all later. Drive safely. Ooh, it's actually been quite some time. I mean, not quite some time. It's been like half a week to a week, somewhere in that range. Since I like binged the 10s and 11s for each of these. And I think I said something at the end, like I was really expecting a lot out of the last episodes for each of these. And honestly, those expectations sort of dampened a little bit, and this is Future Arc episode 12. And it was good. I do think it was good. It was basically Mirai going through with his own plan to create hope through the brainwashing. Mind you, I'm still not really a fan of the brainwash concept, but I like it a bit more in context, in the idea that they're thrown to like fetishize despair, but just seeing a video doesn't make the most sense. What they did to Yukizomi, as disturbing as that was with the whole mind manipulation part, I think that would have been better. Not as cinematic, and you wouldn't have been able to do the stuff in the despair arc quite as dramatically, sure, because of that. But I think that makes more sense, and it just, I guess it sits better with me, just in general. It's not the end of the world that they do it this way, but I would have preferred that. I'm not sure how you could have written it slightly differently to make that a thing, but at the same time, I would have preferred that. So I gotta be honest with the whole brainwash hope thing. Before he actually revealed it, I did have a thought along the lines of, well, you know, why hasn't he ever tried to like make a brainwash video to undo the despair? I also thought something along the lines of, why did Junko never use that brainwash thing in any of her mass broadcasts? I mean, she basically let Mirai go at a point, and she still had that video that seemed to do it perfectly, regardless. And then she did all these mass broadcasts to try to throw people into despair. Maybe she just wants to do it by her own volition instead of relying on the brainwash for all of it. But she sort of relied on that a bit much anyway. But still, just a little bit of adding this whole brainwash element in there that's at least strategy-wise for how everything played out before doesn't make the greatest sense, I suppose. But okay, just a bit of a little nitpick there. I've basically come to terms with the fact that this brainwash thing is just going to be a big thing, and I've just like, fuck it, just roll with it at this point. I'm not the biggest fan of it, but it's not like the worst thing they could have done. It is by far not the worst thing they could have done. As for Midorai's plan to use brainwashing, I couldn't help but think as he was causing Hina to keep Makoto back that, oh my goodness, it's a general thought on life I have. Fight fire with fire and the whole world burns. It's the same idea of hate begets hate, violence begets violence. And if you're going to basically you're going to lower yourself to the level just because you feel as though your side is more justified in having their way than the other side, then you're just as bad. Because basically you're taking away people's decisions for them because you want your way. He wants to not have regrets. Yeah, this is probably the thing he's going to regret most of all, because he's basically becoming Junko in reverse. He doesn't have the same motivations, but that doesn't really make it any better. And that's basically where the episode end-ishes, where you have him brainwashing the entirety of the Future Foundation, well, most of the Future Foundation, a lot of the soldiers, to basically do his bidding and keep people from stopping him from going and broadcasting it to the world. It's unclear if he actually managed to broadcast it, if that timer was like the amount of time expected for it to finish, or it was the time for it to start. And if it was the time for it to start, another random arbitrary thing. It's like, why? But they showed the scene of everyone watching it, and it was just a bit weird, I guess, because why would you have a timer for it to finish too? Again, I don't get that, and hopefully the Hope Arc episode will explain all this. And as Makoto and them was trying to stop them, what happened with Hina? Wasn't she brainwashed? Didn't she just get brainwashed there? What happened? Like, why was she going with them? Why was all that happening? Because it seemed like that just randomly ended for no reason in particular. Then you also have the recap part where they set Yukizomi and Junko in the theater, and they're talking about everything and making it a slight bit more clear on the stuff that had happened behind the scenes up to then, and how Tengen was actually wanting to leave it up to Midorai to a sense, to give him that choice to use it or not. And it's an interesting approach to the story. I think that does set out the motivations much better than it had been earlier. Overall, it's sort of a bit of a weird ending, but it is supposed to follow up into the Hope Side episode coming up next, and that should be interesting. You also had the post-credit stuff with Byakuya and Yasuhiro showing up to basically save Makoto from everything. And apparently they didn't get brainwashed, so that's good. That's good. And the thing that really gets me excited for the next episode and makes me really happy that I can go straight into it, the last little scene that looked like Hajime's silhouette, who honestly, with him, with Zero and all that stuff, he was already one of my favorite characters in general, especially from Danganronpa 2. But the Zero stuff from Danganronpa 3 in the Despair arc makes me just really, really excited for the last episode. And since this is supposed to be the end to everything, I really hope that they do service to this series. I really do hope that this will be a good ending. I think it did a very good job of setting me up and getting me very excited for this last episode. I hope it delivers. Oh, I hope it delivers. See you on the Hope Side. And so we meet on the side of Hope, where all the threads seem to come together, and we see a new beginning within this new end. The true ending to all of the two cast adventures, as well as the new cast brought about in this new story. This time, it really did leave a smile on my face. So I suppose just double back to the beginning for a second. Did anyone else get really, really reminded of Metal Gear Solid in the opening part with the music and everything? I've never even played the games, but I totally thought of Metal Gear Solid while watching that. It was super dire and everything, and you had the countdown, which I'm just gonna assume was a countdown for preparation for it to actually start. It hadn't actually started. I don't know why it was showing the scenes in the last one of people watching it. Maybe it was just him imagining it, and he imagined Kamaru and Toko for some reason. I don't know. But that didn't last too long, as this episode became one truly about the Despair Side's cast. As Hajime showed up, And as he said, he brought everyone back. So yes, everyone's alive. Nagito has a fucking robot arm. Damn. And he killed those guys, mind you. He killed those guys. Bad luck or not, he fucking killed those guys. They were just brainwashed. You could have just undone that brainwashing. And like everyone else, it seemed they weren't killing people, but they were like knocking them out. Nagito fucking killed them unless you assume giant rubble, giant rocks falling on you wouldn't kill you. But you also had everyone else, the imposter playing up his Munakata, Abuki playing her song, the Kane, everything. It's just, everyone's so awesome except probably Hiyoko. I still really like Hiyoko. But at the same time, it just reminds me of why I like the Danganronpa 2 cast so much. There's this sense of like, I guess, dread to them, as well as the sense of lightheartedness that they always seem to bring to the table that just encapsulate what sort of tone I love in Danganronpa so much. And just throughout the episode, through the speech Hajime made to Midori, through all the little antics like Nagito meeting Makoto for the first time, really for the first time actually, and everything else, it sort of brought me back to the Spare Side episode 1, where I was talking about how it was all smiles the entire way through. I just couldn't get the smile off my face during it, and I really, really loved it. And I don't even care that they undid all the consequences from the second game's deaths and the murders and that. I'm not even mad, because this just makes me so very happy, especially as they leave to basically become despair pirates, I assume. I'm not really sure what they're going to do, but I like to imagine that Fuyuhiko gets his eye patch back and they all go be pirates for a while. In regards to the Danganronpa 1 cast, I know when Miyake was talking about how they had a price to pay, and like right after that they shifted to showing like all the Danganronpa 2 casts alive, I thought, oh, you had another one die of Kyoko. It's like, yeah, not such a happy ending for them, I suppose. Though, of course, they could not kill off Kyoko. You know what? I guess good job, writer. You convinced me. That was a very convincing way to make me think you didn't do a fake out. But she's not dead for a very arbitrary reason that was just sort of thrown in there at the end. And you know what? With how happy this episode made me, how hopeful it made me for how good of an ending it was. It wasn't perfect. It didn't like give closure to everything. It sort of set a new status quo, I suppose, with Makoto, I guess, them doing another Hope Speak thing, I guess. I'm not even mad that they brought Kyoko back, even though they so clearly tried to kill her off. I'm actually surprised they didn't bring more people back. I wouldn't have been mad if they brought more people back just for this final send-off. And I really do think that while this doesn't give the best closure on it, it makes me wonder if New Danganronpa V3 is going to like actually build off of this, or if it's going to be like an alternate world. I know they're probably not going to go back to any of the same cast members, no cameos or anything like that in New Danganronpa V3. I think that's supposed to be a new thing entirely. But I am excited to see when I actually play the game. I'm trying to avoid as much stuff as I can on that. I'm excited to see if they decide to stay with this world, and this is just a new status quo that everyone has set up to maybe like, I don't know, 30 years in the future New Danganronpa V3 takes place, or if it's going to be an alternate world thing. And I'm fine either way, it's just interesting to see. And ultimately, I'm going to need to let everything digest a little bit more. I'm going to do a review of this. It's probably going to be a shorter-ish review. Probably not in the style I do game reviews, just because this is so much different. But I'll probably do that and try to write that up, get a bit more scripted, get a bit more analysis, get a bit more actual put-together thoughts instead of just a quick reaction. And I'll get that up, because I really enjoyed this. And I thought it was a very good send-off. I thought that it did do service to what I wanted to see. It did do service to the characters. It did do service to what I wanted out of the series. And I feel as though I'm very happy to let these characters lie where they are now. I don't have any remaining questions as to what needs to happen. Unlike every single one of the previous games, where it was at the end, it was like, oh god, what happens after that? This is a good place to let it lie. And for that, Danganronpa, thank you. And I hope it's just as good in the future.